Okay, we're going to talk about how to read a book. I'm going to go through how I read this book and like why do I put all these post-its and these other things into it. And I'm just going to show you, like if people actually who know me, the things that stand out when people actually know me, there are, I'm pretty plain and simple. There's nothing fancy about me. If you're like at a bar, I would just be a guy in the corner. You wouldn't even notice me. But the people who actually know me, what stands out is they usually kind of freak out about how simple I am. And then the next thing they freak about is how much knowledge I have. Like people who really deeply know me personally. And they go together. Simplicity provides time to do things like how I can read all these books and do all these other things. And like just to give you a little perspective, when I took my diagnostic radiology written boards on clinical information, it's like a 4.5 hour test. I've done an hour, 10 minutes with perfect score. And the question is, how does a person do that? Okay, and what I'm going to show you is here's what happens when you read a lot. Average person is so demoralized from the first year of high school where they're forced to read, Julius Caesar, Great Expectations by Dickens, Kill a Mockingbird, try to tell them they're racist. And it's all specifically chosen by the school system to make kids hate reading. And so most children never read another book the rest of their life except what they're forced to in school. And they go through life being functional illiterates, ahistorical. That's the average American. Complete ignoramuses. Okay. The next level is people who, want to get good grades for, a professional career, go to grad school or something. So they read whatever they have to for school, and they pursue a little bit of advanced education. So they got a little more vocabulary skill, and maybe they got a little higher IQ, but they're not that educated. They did what they had to do to get by. Okay, then the next level up in literacy, vocabulary, verbal sophistication is people who read for pleasure. They'll enjoy reading a nice novel. Whatever they read, they enjoy. It's not a big deal. My father was like this. He would read the well-known novels. He would read the well-known authors, philosophers and stuff. But it was just sort of, after a long day's work, my dad was a doctor, a psychiatrist. He would get done with his day's work, take the dog for a walk. Then he'd eat his dinner. He'd sit in bed and he'd listen to classical music and read books. Okay, and he knew the English authors and sort of the famous men of the last couple thousand years. But what I'm getting at is he wasn't reading for any specific purpose. He was just reading because he found it enjoyable and relaxing. He'd grown up as a poor guy in Ireland with a dirt floor, and he was just happy to have a book in his hand. Okay, and he was a great role model for me. However, what I'm trying to say is there's a higher level of reading, and the higher level of reading is to read for a purpose. And that'll be like what I'm trying to do. I will read for months on end to figure out diabetes, to figure out hypertension, to figure out what causes atherosclerosis, to figure out what causes dementia. And the relevance is when you are reading for a specific purpose to figure out a disease, you've got really good memory retention. Okay? All right, so, and it's nice to have a good vocabulary because people who don't have a good vocabulary, they can't really defend themselves. In this modern world, unfortunately, we all get hassled a lot. Most people do. And if you can verbally defend yourself or you can write well, you have more ability to prevent people from messing with you. And it's good to have that, okay? And it's good for other things as well. But anyways, there's a lot of things that go into, like telling jokes. Anybody who can tell jokes is pretty smart because, think about it. When you learn another language, you don't learn jokes until you're real advanced. That's an advanced thing in language. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. I'm going to go through how I systematically go through a book. Okay, so basically, first of all, you want to choose the book carefully. Most books are not that good. You can look at the testimonials. For example, if it's a nutrition book and the testimonials are the paleo, keto, carnivore, nonsense factory type stuff, the book's going to stink because it's going to be promoting that type of diet, which is, based on nonsense. All right, you look at their credentials. If they really push conventional credentials, conventional everything, the book's going to stink. It's just going to be a drug dealing manual. That's where it's coming from. Conventional medicine is totally narrow-minded and stupid. It almost never cures a disease or does anything new or interesting. Okay, if the patient helped themselves, a family member, a friend, that's a good sign. Doesn't mean the book is good, but at least it's more likely to be good. If there's good information immediately, like on the first page, there should be something good. Because some of the most common things you run into is that the book could really be a 5-page article and they fluff it out into 250 pages to make it into a book. That's a very common trick. So if you don't see a lot of information density, idea density on the first page, don't buy the book, And if you buy a book from Amazon, they're pretty good about showing you the first couple pages. It's really nice to see the index. I like to see the index because, like I said, I recently have these 2 books from the Ivy League, supposedly about Alzheimer's, MS, and this complex neurodegenerative disease. I just wanted to see if these guys, the big names, had anything to show. Both books totally sucked. None of them. They don't even mention excitotoxicity in their index. I bought them off Amazon, so I couldn't see the index when I bought the book. But the book to me is just like a comic book if it doesn't go through excitotoxicity and stuff. It's baby talk. Nonsense. And that's why, one of the lines in this last Ivy League book I read, I started reading, I read about the first 40, 50 pages. He says, hundreds of Alzheimer's scientists were gathered together in this auditorium in some national meeting, a conference. And what I'm saying is, there's hundreds of them. And despite the fact being hundreds of them, none of them has any more imagination, than a high school dropout. I'm sorry, they just sit there and go, how come we can't make beta amyloid work? How come we can't make inflammation work? Because it's wrong, okay? And it's been wrong for 40, 50 years. So they're stupid, okay? I'm telling you, it doesn't mean a doctor's smart because they go to an Ivy League school, okay? And being smart's not the same as having a good memory to pass a test, okay? Creative thinking and memorizing something for a test are not the same thing. Okay, they'll go together sometimes, but they're not the same thing at all. Okay, so sometimes they're just trying to recruit you for some course you must pay for or to come to their clinic or something. So again, if you see that there's not a lot of information density, then forget it. All right, so now what do I actually really do? I'll take a look at the book, I'll look at the table of contents, get the gist of it, and I maybe look at the pictures a little bit, but then I start reading. And notice I write all over my books. I write on them like crazy. What I'm trying to do is, the first time I go through the book, I'm just scanning the book for information. Is there anything useful here that I want to memorize? Because that's my expectation when I read a book, that I'm basically going to suck the useful knowledge out of it like a vacuum and then keep that knowledge, okay? So I'll circle a word, I'll make a little asterisk, or I'll draw a line from the money word. Same things here. I don't know if you can see that. I can put it up here. Well, here. No, that's the page where I got the line. These lines coming up, that means I'm going to go back to that. And I'll go back to the book later to put it into a Word file. For example, this is a book about hypertension, High Blood Pressure Solution by Richard Moore, MD, PhD. It's one of the best healthcare books ever written. So I will take this information and I'll have a file on my computer on hypertension. And I'll keep the page numbers corresponding to it. Plus, I also, while I'm reading the book, I'll just read these in the bathroom usually, is I'll write in the back of the book, and I'll often cross-index the book, the page number to where I saw something good. So then the first time through the book is just to quickly see, is there anything useful? I'm searching like a scout. Is there useful information? Is there useful information? Then the second time I go through, I'm doing it to transfer it to my Word file, or I'll just make a video about it, a book review or something. And that way I'll have the information available to me. Because the value of the book, yeah, sure, it's nice to enjoy the book, but the main value of the book to me when I'm reading a medical book for the purpose of mastering a subject is that I retain the information. Okay, so it's not so much, it's what you retain long term that matters. A lot of times I'll just dog-ear the page, I'll fold it back. I'll fold the page back like that, so when I go back over it, I'll only go back to the pages I folded over. If I think there's something really good, I'll put a Post-it note on there, So here's something. I thought this page was really good. I put Post-it notes on both of those pages. Sometimes I go over it again, 6 months or a year later, because I revisit the topic, and I'll highlight it or I'll use a different color pen. But I'm very actively engaged with it, and I've gotten teased about this. I've been like this ever since I was in college, and I'll get teased about it by people, but I'll know the book backwards and forward. I'll be able to quote back the key points in the book, and that's how I do it. And the other thing, I'm real simple. And the reason I say simple, what I'm saying is I don't waste any time with BS. I don't drink any alcohol. I don't do anything that I think is stupid or a waste of time. Like watching TV is a stupid waste of time. I don't do any of that because that's how I was able to do so many things. Because people ask me, like kids are having trouble in school and they want to do better in school. I'm like, well, you can't watch TV. You can't waste time with all these things. And they're like, they kind of freak out by that. But I'm like, that's what it takes. I also tell them, you show up that first day of class, you want to know more than anyone else in the room because you studied the topic in advance. All these little things add up to mastering a subject. Let's see. Summarize key points in the back cover. I put a page number index to it so I can find it again quickly. Make a video. Put the book somewhere you can find it later. Yeah, I got thousands of books, so I try to have at least some filing system. The stuff that's really good, I keep them near me, near my person, so I can get back to them easily. If the book's a piece of crap, I just throw them into a big pile. I don't care if I ever see the book again. I can tell pretty quick if I'm ever going to want to look at the book again. For really long books, like I'm reading these novels for pleasure, I will just listen to them in the car on an audio CD. I'll buy the paper version a lot of times, and I'll look up specific parts in it, but I won't read the entire paper version. They're just too long, because back in the 1800s, there was nothing else to do. No TV, no radio, nothing. So the authors had a lot of purple prose, went on too long. But anyways, that's the key point. That number one, you're going through the book to find information. Number two, you come back to it in a way to save the good stuff and put it into a Word file or make a video about it. And then you've taken all the useful information from the book for the most part. You know, later on you might be more sophisticated on that subject and want to go back to it, revisit it in more detail because you can better understand the nuance of it. But you get the gist of it. That's how you suck the information out of a book.